everyone. Welcome to the Headliner PodPod, where we discuss podcast episodes from within the Headliner family. It's kind of like Oprah's book club without Oprah or books. Today's podcast is Rocket Ship FM. It's hosted by Michael Sacca and Mike Belsito. Here's a little bit more about that podcast from their website. The podcast for entrepreneurs, product managers, and anyone working in tech today. We break down the concepts you need to know, from product management to growth, sales to funding. We'll bring you stories that will inspire and insights that will change the way you think about product and business. So that's a little bit about the podcast itself. Today's episode from that podcast is, Will Robots Take Over the World? We delve into the world of humanoid robots, highlighting their journey from past disappointments to their current state of development. We'll discuss recent advancements in their mobility and capabilities, including their use in Disney's live shows. We also raise questions about the societal impact of these robots and tease an upcoming segment and even talk to the robots themselves. So before we get into the discussion, let's just do some quick intros. From the Headliner team, we have Jesse. Say hello to the folks out there, Jesse.
Hello, everybody.
We have Nicholas.
Howdy.
Christy.
Hello.
Dash.
Hey, everyone.
Max.
Hey, happy to be here again. Thanks for having me back.
And Alyssa.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so now that we're all here, we're all introduced, let's discuss. What did you guys think of the episode?
I think it was interesting. I think there's a bunch of different ways to bucket what we want to talk about. There's the production side, the content side, and maybe the way that people are promoting it. But I think from the production side, I loved how there was music going the entire time. It's just kind of shoelaced the entire podcast front to back, which is this nice little ambient, almost this lo-fi thing. It's fantastic. The production on this podcast was just incredible.
Yeah, I actually have a thought I'm going to add real quick on the production. Since we're going there, this podcast reminded me a lot, production-wise, of Radiolab. And on top of that, I think Michael Sacca his voice is in the same tonal family as Jad Abumrad, the host of Radiolab. And so I couldn't kind of separate the two in my head, and Radiolab isn't super active. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the future of this kind of a podcast.
That's actually a really cool idea. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
That's a cool idea to find. Is there a tool out there that can find podcast hosts that sound like the other podcast hosts you listen to, matching their tonal ranges, so you can kind of jump back into that type of vibe?
Write that down, Max.
Sounds like
write that down. I want a podcast filter that only plays baritone podcast hosts.
Yes. Or some nerdy guys listen, I want a range between 1,257 hertz and 26. That's what I want specifically.
Yeah, the NPR core filter where it's just people who talk and then whisper and talk again.
Yes.
I listen to one podcast very specifically because the voice helps me sleep. So I would like to mix it up, because it's I'm running out of the same episodes or I don't want to hear the same episodes anymore. So I would find that very beneficial for sleeping purposes.
Like we said, Max, write that down.
Yeah, we're not even 2 minutes in. We're already on a tangent and have a new product idea. So I think good podcast episode so far.
All right.
Totally.
Well, let's turn it up. Let's switch over to the content first. And talk about that a little bit.
I really enjoyed how it kind of started with the clip from Megan. That movie is incredible, and I feel like a lot of people would have leaned into a quote from Terminator, and they do talk about Terminator. You can't
comes up later.
Yeah, you can't not talk about Terminator. But starting with the quote from Megan, I thought was okay, so these guys are having a lot more fun than I thought that they would. So that was just great. And plus the quote at the end where they're talking, the conversation that they have with, I don't remember the name of the actual AI that they're talking to, but when she was being super creepy and joking, saying just
Olivia,
kidding about taking over the world. Yeah. It was just fantastic.
Doesn't Megan just seem like Child's Play redone?
Yeah, just ever so slightly.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen Megan, but just what I've seen, it just seems like Chucky.
Chucky
was kind of the first robot, anyways.
Yes.
Not a new idea.
Yes.
Megan's amazing.
I have to see it. Yeah.
You gotta go check it out.
I don't like clowns and I don't like robots. So those are the only two like I will watch.
Megan's a doll. She's a little kid's doll. She's not a clown, for the record.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying in the realm of horror things, can't do clowns, can't do robots. Like, but Megan, no, can't do it.
So actually, Alyssa, when it comes to this episode, did you have a problem getting through it? Because it's all robots.
Well, I listened to it multiple times actually for like a fun little marketing project. But anyways, outside of that, I was like slightly terrified. Yeah, when they were talking to Sophia and she was like, "Oh, I mean, I could take over the world, but I won't because I have an off switch." I was like, that's a terrifying thought. Like, I don't want that energy anywhere. But it kind of kept coming up a lot in the podcast too. So I was like, that's freaky. They talked about Disney. So that was like a little bit more like happy thoughts. Not so much like, hey, a robot might like take over the world or something. But yeah.
The Disney robots are taking over a job.
Yeah, that's what I was intrigued with. I was like, oh man, so they're like doing like union busting, but with robots.
ever so slightly. But okay, wait. So they made it sound like they were going to talk about like, oh, this is what stuntmen think about these like stunt robots. Did they ever actually go back to that? I'm just realizing now. I don't know if they ever circled back on that.
No, they didn't.
I know like it's a point of contention amongst some stuntmen to be like, hey, but I want to risk breaking my leg to do a somersault to Spider-Man, you guys.
Yeah, that was a goofy little section.
That Disney robot is funny though. I have seen that in real life, and it face planted cool on the wall.
I had to pull up videos after that segment just to see it because they mentioned the video.
And they said the robots never make a mistake, but I guess they face plant sometimes.
Oh
yeah. They do.
So okay. Also, when I was like working at Disney, we had animatronics in like most of the rides, and they were like a big problem because they'd always break. And then like kids would be terrified because like there was this one robot and it had this arm motion and it would always pop out of the socket. So you'd see this like large robot like waving,
popping and locking,
wires like exposed, and then children were crying. So
the robot doing the robot.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So anyways, that's my bias against robots, but that's just me.
I came in terrified and left less terrified, of like kind of underwhelmed about them overtaking the world, to be honest. But like I didn't like research a lot of AI or robotics before. I mean, just what you kind of see in the news casually. But I think we got these people the humans got these robots beat. Was kind of my takeaway.
Well, robots that they were describing in the episode sounded a lot like the ones from the Jetsons, like
Rosie
rudimentary language. It's like, it's exactly.
I was like, I mean, like Rosie could probably take over the Jetsons, but I mean, why would she want to?
Yeah, and it's just like it seemed very non-threatening, and like same type of voice and language you heard 30 years ago. Exactly.
I think there's nothing more deflating than like listening to Elon Musk talk about robots. He just sounded so bored with it, and it just really like set me at ease, being like, okay, cool. So like okay, robots are boring now. Except if I looked up to Optimus, it looks so creepy. It's like got a black head and like the black top part of his body is like black painted, and the rest of it is just like this metal.
They know what they're doing.
It's so gross looking and it's so creepy looking, but like the way he talks about it was just like so boring. Oh, it's going to be under $20,000, and like it's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of what Alyssa said, I think I'm actually saying the opposite of what you said, where I went in and I was like, I was underwhelmed by it because like I've heard and followed some of the hype around like AI and machine learning and stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, so if you just put like ChatGPT in a body, what'll happen? That's kind of what I was imagining they were going to talk about. And then they started talking about it, and I was like, wait, this isn't that much of a punch above like an animatronic at like a Chuck E. Cheese, is it? Like this is Chuck E. Cheese and Dolly Dimples in a nutshell, or like a stunt show robot.
Yeah, I mean, agreed.
Yeah,
I don't know, Max. What do you think? Max has been oddly quiet, and I know Max has done a lot of research and reading on all of this stuff. So I'd love to hear if we're going to get taken over by robots from you.
I've been trying to keep quiet because I didn't want, once you open this once you let the genie out of the bottle, like there's a lot of stuff that's, once you open Pandora's box, like it's going to be hard for me to stop talking about this. But yeah, like, the majority of the stuff that like we've been talking about at Headliner, even on the product side, is a lot of AI stuff. So we're all pretty familiar with it. I mean, Headliner's been like an AI product to some degree for a couple of years, and I think I'm kind of on the same page as you guys. The more I learn about AI, the less afraid I get about it. And in terms of this premise of the robots taking over, I think it's kind of a bit of a red herring in a way. Like certainly it's a concern, but I think that there's a lot more interesting things happening that are like more terrifying with AI that are well documented. Like, oh, maybe there'll be this sentient robot like Rosie from the Jetsons will all of a sudden just decide to take over the world one day. But that could happen. We don't have any evidence of it. And the stuff we already have evidence of is like, you know, these models have bias in them, which people are using them for bank loan automation and stuff. And now it's skewing towards a certain group of people, you know, predominantly white male people are getting favored perhaps in these models, and that's affecting people's bank loans and stuff like that. And so I think that this robot idea of them like taking over the world is certainly fun to talk about, but it's almost becoming like a meme at this point. And I'm getting a lot more afraid of the other stuff, like almost the human to human manipulation that uses robotics and AI in the middle versus like the AI to human manipulation. So I kind of wish they touched on that a little bit, but you know, I think there's also this like, you know, I told you guys not to open this Pandora's box, but I got a lot to say here. But like the most interesting critique I've heard lately is that all this AI scare talk, like this AGI is what they refer to it as, artificial general intelligence, which is essentially saying it's sentient. All that talk, a lot of people are starting to consider if it's just a scare tactic from a lot of the major AI companies like OpenAI as an attempt to do regulatory capture, essentially overplay their hand, scare everybody into thinking that AI is a lot further along than it is, regulate the market, and then kind of cement their position as the leading incumbents. Which the more I think about that, the more there's more evidence for that than AGI at this point. So I don't know. I think
are you suggesting, Max? Sorry, I just want to ask you a question. Are you suggesting that Sam Altman's nuclear backpack may just have a ham sandwich inside?
It's certainly possible.
Yeah, I'm with you there though, Max. Like, yeah. I think you tapped into something that, yeah, this podcast like completely skirted, where they're just talking about like the literal, this is what this is. It's almost like a primer on what like robotics and to some degree AI is in 2023. Whereas like, especially from our point of view, because this is just something we, like you said, we've had our hand in that cookie jar for a minute now. We're kind of familiar with it. So we're asking like the second and third question where this just focused on, okay, what is this? Like, this is, if I was at my barber's and he was like, hey, so what is AI? I would just be like, here, just listen to this podcast. And then I'd drop my phone on the counter and promptly forget it there because he has to listen to the podcast. And how do you share a podcast with somebody? You give them your phone.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like in terms of who the audience is for this podcast. And I guess I'm kind of grappling with the question of, is it the right call for the media and all these other podcasts to kind of focus on that aspect? They always go to this, will the robots take our jobs? Will the robots take over? And like to some degree, it's possible, but like there's a lot more plausible scenarios already happening, which, you know, I'm just wondering if we should all be trying to get those messages out a bit more, because we have tons of evidence of like, you know, algorithm or
sure
AI model bias and such. But yeah. I mean, I love the episode. I think it was a super interesting topic. I just wish they kind of went a little deeper beyond the will robots take over and say like, oh, here's some of the things already happening, which, you know, jump to the end of the movie. The spoiler alert is that, oh, it was humans the whole time. Humans were just manipulating other humans using technology as an intermediary. So, you know, yeah. that's my bet of where this goes wrong.
I think one of the major things I would have enjoyed from like this podcast, which like Max, I did enjoy it. I actually thought it was really interesting, and it was a nice like refresher course for me almost, because stuff like the Disney animatronics, like I completely forgot those existed. But I would have loved to see them like start to ask those questions, but also just start to say like, what we're being told is that it'll become Rosie the robot or whatever. It'll clean our houses for us in the future. It'll become a super Roomba, if you will. But I would have loved to hear them go, but more likely than not, it'll probably just become like another swatch in our Swiss Army knife or whatever. Like, oh, it might handle the mopping, but we still have to like kind of dry our floor off afterwards or something.
That seems like a likely scenario. I think the other one is like the company making it will start using it to spy on you and like sell advertisements to get around what you say and so it's like it's an amazing technology. Like there's so many ways to use it, and there's so many good ways to use it and so many bad ways. And I think it's really interesting to start to get into the ways humans are gonna, like the human to human alignment problem around this stuff versus the humans to machines. Because I've not seen a machine by itself attempt to manipulate me, but many humans have. And you know, the emails about the prince who needs like a loan to get his kingdoms, I don't know, whatever that
the famous Nigerian prince scam.
These are like, you just look at all the evidence around us of ways that people are using technology today, like email, and then just automate it with AI, and that seems like a very likely outcome for all this. So I think that's much scarier than the robots taking over. But
I think the scary part, I think the whole like of the entire podcast, there was one part that they didn't jump on, but if you know anything about like government agencies, they talked about the DARPA award. There was a entire section of like, now satellites, GPS technology, all of these things came from DARPA. Like DARPA is like a United States government agency that totally is not really a great agency, but creates a lot of wild stuff. The fact that they were having some kind of a reward for robots, that's what pricked my ears, where I'm like, okay.
Sorry, a little history lesson here as well. They did create the internet as well. If you weren't aware. Okay. So
ARPANET or whatever.
ARPANET, yeah. Which makes it a little less strange to me, but I get what you're saying.
Like they've been involved with so much stuff, so like to see, like to kind of reach out to the public and say like, well, what do you guys got, kind of means that like the government is like either checking up on other companies to see if they've got what they have or if they just need some help on some things.
Like they're out of ideas at DARPA.
Yeah, like DARPA's finally out of ideas.
They did the internet and they were like, we're done.
Yeah.
They actually invented LLMs as a concept just to help them come up with new ideas, Max.
Like total one-hit wonder government agency.
But no, I mean, I think that's kind of an interesting point what Christian raised. It kind of reminds me of like a lot of the things we sort of take for granted in our everyday life are the result of like these huge military spending contracts or like government contracts. For example, like stuff like, I think Ziploc is one of them, but Velcro, those were invented by NASA in the 60s because, hey, things float in space. We need to stick it to the wall. Boom, Velcro.
Paying as well.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess, is there anything else you all noticed? I mean, I think the topic is definitely very, people are on this topic right now and thinking about it a lot. Specific to the podcast episode in itself, was there anything else that kind of jumped out?
Yeah, I thought it was, besides the fact that I thought it was well produced, I think Christy mentioned like it sort of had like lo-fi music in the background and it sounded pleasant on the ears. But I noticed they cut to a lot of like external stuff. So they cut to like a Business Insider video at one point about the Disney animatronics. The interview at the end of the episode was
Al Jazeera
actually, it was Al Jazeera. Yeah. Which I remember because I remember seeing that video when it came out. But
they're a Headliner user, so shout out to Al Jazeera.
Plug there. That's why I remembered.
But no, I thought that was really cool and well done and produced. But it stood out to me that huge like swaths of the episode were just the cutaway, and I would have liked to hear their feedback on it more. Like maybe a 15-30 second primer on what it is from the video, and then they can just finish the story for us and tell us like, oh yeah, I agreed with this, or I thought this was interesting. The show was very tightly scripted to my ears, which is awesome. You want something to be tightly scripted so that you don't go off on long meandering rambles about Velcro. But like, you know, I would have liked a little bit more chatter in between stuff.
Even the ad that they had in the middle of there was like on what's the way I want to say this? even the ad was completely on brand with their podcast. It was for a software. It was just software company. It was like, it didn't even break its stride from doing the part of the podcast to the ad, back to the podcast. It's all on brand, shoelaced together. It was like incredible.
Yeah. I thought the robots' attempt at humor were totally lame. So I think like writers and comedians are probably pretty safe for a while. I know there's a lot of worry out there, but that was one takeaway I had about jobs, like the writer's strike and everything. I don't think they have a lot to worry about, especially the comedians. I mean, that's a hard thing to write. Humor.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like,
it takes
just because you use just kidding doesn't mean it's comedy.
Right.
You mean I can't write an angry email and just end it with lol JK? This is
I mean, you
me.
can. That's actually that is funny. That is kind of funny, but it's not Oscar funny.
Gotcha. So I'm a bottom feeder.
Bottom feeder, Nick.
No, but I think that's another thing that would have been really interesting, like just to dive into that. I know that's more the AI side than robotics, but yeah, we live in 2023. Like those two are, I know they aren't synonymous, but they certainly feel like they are. You know?
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer. I think that was actually thinking about that, where everyone was kind of diving into AI side. I'm like, wait, this is a robot episode. Oh, that's just how close we are.
Yeah,
but
sure.
the robot, apparently, to Dash's point, doesn't have the ability to read the room and tailor the joke.
Yeah,
in a room full of humans, maybe don't make like a human domination joke. Just, like sketch comedy.
Then there's like
make everyone uncomfortable. Just.
Yeah. Do you think we can teach these robots?
We can absolutely teach the robots.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, now you can almost like manipulate it. So whenever you're just talking like in like ChatGPT or something like that, you can 100% get it to start feeding you a certain type of information if you just keep priming it enough. So I do think that you could manipulate like a larger non-AI based, well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like robot, like humanoid robot, not typing to robot.
Yeah, and the concern around jobs, I think the robots will take some jobs, but I think humans inevitably will become stronger because of this, and the jobs in the field around robotics will outnumber the jobs that the robots take. So I see it as a net win for the humans, human race.
Team human.
Yeah, I have a weird thing from that. My partner works in construction, and there is a massive thing happening where we're starting to be able to 3D print houses.
Wow.
Like there's some houses that basically you set up like this length and width, and there's like a robot that goes around and like pours the concrete and like does it in layers and layers and layers and layers. And as soon as they were able to figure out how to do that with like hotels, like the construction business is the first one right now that has lots of labor, they're going to try and gut that. And it's been a really, really, really weird thing.
I mean, I imagine that robots will, people in powerful positions will try to replace any type of job that is kind of like lower skill or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll probably try and just replace it with robots, and then we'll probably have a revolution of some sort once enough people are out of work. So
just a small little revolution.
Just probably.
Just a tiny guy of a revolution.
Just a touch.
A small one.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to keep your job, just keep in mind that timing is everything. They can't do that for you.
That's right.
That's true.
Where's John Connor when you need him?
Boom. Yeah. End of podcast. That's where we cut. Perfect. Intro and outro music. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's kind of funny because we look at like the robots and we're like, well, robots can't take over the world. They're just making jokes and folding clothes. But like, there's also the whole part of the, there's also the people taking the robotic dogs, plugging in an LLM and handing in a gun. Like, okay, like in the military. So, I mean, if we did watch Terminator, it was the military, not, Elon Musk that did make the robots that destroyed everything. So I have 100% belief that the government will probably hook up robots to weapons in a way that will be catastrophic at some point, but it might not be for decades. But they're definitely going to do it. Like, you can't just give everyone the machines and expect them to just not try.
We're already dropping bombs with drones. I mean, we're not far off.
Can't give them $100 trillion budget and expect them not to.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
They got to spend the money somehow, guys.
I mean, when's the next MIT video that shows like their next robot that they're working on? We've all seen the parkour videos. We've all seen
you mean the Boston Dynamics?
Yeah, like the one that is like the one they didn't even talk about it, which like maybe we don't have to talk about it, everyone just knows that those weird Boston Dynamic dogs and people.
I mean, everyone knows them because they are just that impressive. I feel like that was a weird omission.
I've heard rumors that those videos are like the take 100. The dog finally didn't tip over, but you know.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't gone into like, I don't know where else you could find. I always do it in iPhone iMessage. Look in the GIF section and look for robot fail. Such an amazing collection of like robots trying to play soccer, and to hit the ball they'll like dive headfirst into it. Like, I mean, it took a lot of trial and error to get those dogs walking.
I really, really love the idea that there is a guy working on robots right now that every time that there's an advancement, he starts getting a little paranoid. And so he goes into his iPhone and looks up robot fails just so he can look at these robot failing and feel better about his work.
He actually just has them keyed to email to him every morning.
Yes,
it's his alarm clock.
About dumb robots. Don't worry, man. There's so many more dumb ones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, just wait till the smart robot hears what we've been doing to the dumb ones.
Oh, no.
It's true. Can I just say something for any machines that may or may not listen to this in the future? I, for one, humbly await our new robot overlords. My name is Nicholas. I live in New Jersey. If you find me crossing the street, wave hello. I'll wave back. I won't run.
Alyssa in Nashville will run. She will run.
Yeah. I think I've just outed myself as like a robot scab. Like, if this robot's named Dracula, I'm Renfield. Like,
you're off Team Human now, Nicholas.
Yeah, I'm off Team
Go
Human.
join Team Robot.
Yeah.
To quote Mac and Always Sunny, I play both sides so that I always come out on top.
Incredible.
Well, all right. So yeah, I really enjoyed this week's episode. I drove to the Nashville Podcasters meetup yesterday, and the episode is about 26 minutes, and the 12-minute drive in rush hour traffic is exactly 26 minutes, so it was perfect. So yeah, I think it was a great one, and definitely led to a lot of great discussion. If there's any last little closing thoughts, or if anyone has something they want to plug, maybe someone in our group.
AI.
Let's plug Eddy. I mean, we've just released all these generative AI features into Eddy, our new transcript app. So if anybody hasn't checked that out, go to eddy.headliner.app. Try some AI that won't kill you and won't take your job.
It's not going to take over the world. It's going to take over your audience.
It also can't fold your laundry, but it can do a lot of other stuff. Well, all right. Thanks, everyone. Until next time. Stay safe out there, people.